You can listen to any elk hunting show or podcast, and we all hear about ways to get a response, what a setup is, knowing our effective range, and making a killing shot. Those are all major points or steps needed to successfully take an elk with a bow. But what about all those variables that lead up to that, or the steps in between it? When do you set up or close the distance? What exactly is the red zone or a bull's bubble? Do you call as you're moving in, or do you stay silent? The bugles seem close and then far away. What if a bull locks up at 80 yards, or instead he's coming in straight at you? When do you wait? When do you draw? When do you move or just stay put? On tonight's show, it's part one of our series, Archery Elk Hunting from Response to Release and Connecting All the Dots. This series is where we look between those major steps and fill in all the gaps. Those topics are ElkBros shout-outs and questions from our awesome ElkBros mailbox. So my friends, pull up a chair, adjust your volumes just right, and welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting, brought to you by ElkBros.com, with your host Gilbert Ornelas and elk hunting coach Joe Gillia. You want to hunt elk? They live to hunt elk. Their goal is to share with you what they have learned grinding it out for over 35 seasons, doing what they love. So come on into camp and set a spell. Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunters.
Hello there, everyone. If it's your first time with us, glad to have you. Hope you enjoy our show. And as always, for those blue collar hunters following our show and grinding it out with us every week, welcome back to Elk Camp. I'm Gilbert Ornelas, the host of your show, coming to you live from the studio in Spring, Texas, and from Katy, Texas, in the DFW metro area. We got the Venezuelan Mafia in the house. Luis Gonzalez and Manano Grateron. And from the Central Texas region, we got the Flatlander himself. Mr. Cole Wilkes is in the house.
Yes,
and
sir.
from Cimarron, we got the elk hunting gods in the house. That's right. We got the elk ninja.
Oh
we got Leroy, Chav, Chavez, and WWJGD. What would Joe Gillia do's in the house tonight? How's it going, fellas?
Dude, I can't believe you chickened out on Manano, man. What the hell?
What's going on, Migo?
What kind of crap is that, Beto? I thought you were stronger than that, bro.
Oh, my
He's my
goodness.
brother.
People need to understand that the first intro that got deleted,
No.
you know,
Never
I was introduced
It
properly.
Never happened.
No, ain't
That's a
gonna
lie.
happen.
Prove it. Prove it ain't happened.
No, bro.
Yeah, we're waiting for one more to come in, man. So there we go. Hey, guys, check this out.
Hey, guys.
We have
Hey.
some
Welcome,
special
fellas.
guests joining us, everybody. Meet Jonathan and Brent, Team Idaho. This
Team
is
Idaho's in the
our
house.
second team on the show from the upcoming season of Hunt Wars, y'all. How's it going, guys?
Jeez,
Hey,
brother,
doing great.
welcome.
Check out the big beard on Brent. I like it, dude.
Man, look at that.
Out. He's ready.
That's what I'm talking
Got the
about.
Billy Robertson going on, brother. I like it, dude.
Well, wait until it gets caught in your bowstring, and then it's not so fun.
It sucks, dude. Sucks to be you. Guys,
Well, so who's the shooter?
welcome to the show.
I'm the shooter.
Jonathan's
There you
a
go.
shooter.
There you
Who's the
go.
caller?
And
Who was
Brent's
actually the
caller.
one that put in for the draw?
That was me. That's why I'm the
Hey.
shooter.
You guys hunt a lot together?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have.
Lots. Oh, man.
Fantastic.
How long, man? Give us
You
some
guys seem like
history
a
here.
man of
Come
many
on, guys.
words.
You guys are on the podcast. Let's rock it.
Little history. So we met when I moved up to North Idaho about 8 years ago, and we've hunted every season since. Built a good friendship, and we've had a lot of good memories. You guys understand that.
For sure.
All right. So who has called in elk for who and who has finished, man?
Oh, we've both killed elk. We've
Yeah.
both killed elk with each other. We usually hunt the rifle season. So it's definitely some cow calling and a lot of locating with those cow calls to find where herds are, and then moving in with rifles to, button it up, so to speak.
Do you guys get to hunt the rut in Idaho with a rifle?
Nope.
I got you.
Yeah, there's a couple spots that it's a draw tag only, but there's not very many tags.
Good deal.
We put in for that actually this year and didn't get it.
That's why we're here.
Yep.
There's a lot of us with that going on. Putting in for tags and not getting them.
Yep.
Man, but congratulations. So, Jonathan, tell us about the emotions of when you found out and how the whole thing went. Why did you apply? Where did you see it? How did that all go?
Yeah, so I actually saw it on one of my other friends' Facebook posts or pages or whatever, showed that he liked Hunt Wars, and I was like, Hunt Wars, what is that? And so I clicked on it and checked it out a little bit, and then called up Brent and was like, hey man, we got to put in for this. And he's like, I'm getting ready to buy a house. He's like, you don't understand. And
I'm broke, man. I'm about to spend all my money. I have no $100.
And I definitely understand how that goes. And so then I didn't even tell him, but I put in, and then called him up, after the live drawing, and was like, hey, you got to check your phone. and he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm at work.
What do you guys do for a living?
So I work for a tech company in the medical field.
Oh, cool.
And lucky enough, I get to work from home for now in wound care and hyperbaric medicine.
Okay.
I was actually at work. I manage a couple restaurants in our town here, and I was literally elbow deep in deboning chicken. And so I am covered
in the weeds,
nasty, all nasty, and there's blood everywhere. Right. The phone's like buzz, 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 buzz. And you got to look at this video. I can't look at this video. I'm covered in chicken. You've got to look. The server's freaking out. The bartender's going down in fire. The kitchen's out of chicken. And finally run outside, and it's like Jonathan Scott. And I actually went home from work because I was worthless.
Can't concentrate.
Like, nope. I have nothing to say to you. I got to leave. I'm out. I got to go process.
Cool. When we got started, when we got started with Hunt Wars, I text Joe one afternoon, and I'm like, I think Joe was on vacation somewhere. And I text Joe, I said, dude, you got to check this out. You and I need to go do this, right? Would you be my partner on Hunt Wars? Let's do this together. Little did we know how this was all going to turn out. And now we get to coach on the Hunt Wars, right?
Yeah.
So freaking cool, man, how it all came together. And we're so proud of you guys, and just want y'all to know that, any resource that y'all need from us, man, we're here to help.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
And congratulations again.
So you guys right now are going through this process. You're actually the first class of ElkBros with Hunt Wars, and so this is the experiment really going on. How you feel the experiment's going on?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I found it out.
Are we talking about the vaccine, or what are we talking here about exactly, man? What are we talking about? I'm a little confused right now.
I'm not. I follow you, Joe.
Oh, okay.
How's it been for you guys, man? Going through the coaching from ElkBros.
I can't even express how much we've learned. I've hunted elk my entire life. I told my wife when we first got married that, I probably enjoyed elk hunting more than I did, spending time with my wife, if you know what I mean. And
never say that.
Not wise, bro. Not wise.
Hey, listen, we all think it, but we'll never say it.
He's a real man right there.
So you need to keep like, Joe, we got to switch the class around. We got to go back to square one here.
Straight up, dude.
Let's reorganize this thing.
Yeah, but I didn't talk. We haven't gotten to the relationship part yet. So,
it's obvious.
Sorry, bro. So you've been at it for a long time, and still.
Yeah. And I've got to say, I've seen time and time again the behavior that you've talked about in our courses, but never understood what I was seeing. It's like reading Braille. Like you feel it, but you don't know what it says. And now, the times and times again where I've called bulls and have them just keep moving away from me. Now I get it. Now it's like, oh, he's got cows. He's pushing his cows. I need to get up. I need to parallel him, and I'm going to kill a bull. It all makes sense now. Like if I would have known you 20 years ago, I mean, where were you? You know?
Yeah.
Like, this is your fault. I haven't killed more bulls. This is
Back
not
in
my
my
fault.
mid-20s, son, I'd have been dangerous.
No doubt.
Well, I tell
Great
you what,
dangerous.
I get texts, I get videos, I get audio from these guys throughout the day, man. They're like, how does this sound? You know, we're working on the calling, and you know, it's really, really cool, this whole involvement, this opportunity to work with these guys, and they're so excited, they're pumped. And I'm just, man, I tell you, I've already warned them all, man. If a critter doesn't hit the ground, I'm coming after all of them, and I don't miss. So,
Joe, but the good thing though is that you're used to this interaction with Manano asking you every day, you know, how to call and, you know, all these questions about elk behavior day in and day out, right? I mean, you had some training prior too. Sure.
Hey, guys, if you wear your feeling on your sleeve around here, you're gonna go home angry or hurt. You're gonna have your man pawn in a bunch. I promise you.
so I asked this, you know, look, you know that the other guys don't watch this and everything, so we just want to know from you guys, man, who's really going to take this thing, huh?
I heard this last week.
Oh, somebody listens to the podcast. Pretty good. All right. All right. That's pretty good, Jonathan.
Hey, I'm not afraid to say it. I think there's some legit competition out there, you know, and I'm not afraid to say either that I've had a lot to learn and I'm learning a lot. So don't count me out. That's for sure.
There you go. I like that.
I like the confidence.
You know what they said? It only takes one, bud. It only takes one. So, you know, and the way you guys are getting after it, and I love this, man, because sometimes I do some of this stuff with them. And Brent, you know, he's got his kids running around. I'm like, where's your grunt tube? And he's like, my son stole my grunt tube.
It was full of shotgun shells last week. He probably had 20 shotgun shells in my grunt too. I was shaking it off camera, trying to get him out on mute so I could call for you.
You know, guys, I know, man, everybody, it's going to be an exciting season. You guys are now just, man, you're almost 30 days out almost now, right?
Yep.
So it's getting tighter, it's getting closer. I'm hoping that you guys go out not only excited, but feeling, you know, you got something under your belt. You got Cole right there. You got one of your coaches with us. Yep. And
I can't wait.
Yeah.
And Eric is going to be with you guys. Just super dudes.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Best.
Yeah, it's going to be friggin' awesome, man. So we are looking forward to rooting for your team. Now, Gilbert said last week, I could have sworn Gilbert was like, well, we're riding with you guys. I thought he said, we're going with Team Idaho last week. Is that what you said?
I was going to say, they say this to every team. So, I mean,
did I say Team Idaho? Because we're talking to Team Idaho right now. Bro.
Right, we are, bro. I'm helping you out, man.
Yeah, that's what I thought, man. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, it really looks like they've assembled a cool class of guys to get this done. And, you know, we're going to support all of them, and I'm going to push all of them like the coach that I am. You know, I tell all my players, you're my favorite player, you know, and because they all are. And at the end of the day, we're going to support you guys, and I hope y'all go out there and kick ass and take names, and damn be the rest of them, because you guys are from Idaho and y'all been hunting together. Y'all go out there and get it done, man. Make your calls where you need to. You pick out your little red dot on the side of that bull where you want to put it, and let that arrow fly, brother. I mean, and then we'll all celebrate the coup de grace after it's over with.
And I think one thing that's going to be different this season, and this is only the second season, and for you people that don't know about Hunt Wars that's listening, you need to go check out their YouTube channel. It's Hunt Wars with a Z, or their website, huntwars.com. It's one word there, huntwars.com. You need to go check this out, because this is the second season. And, it's so cool because it's all about the grind. It's real guys that got into this hunt from wherever in the United States, and they're there with a partner. And what's so cool about this is they talk about shooter caller, you know, that there's a shooter and there's a caller. But both these guys are going to have the ability, and they're going to carry from this into their hunting a skill set that they're going to take beyond this show, because both of them are learning to call, and both of them have to be ready to stop an animal. You know, if they need to do a scenario, it's not going to be like it's dependent on one person. They get to work as a team, and
it never is. I mean, it's always this. I mean, that's always the case, regardless, right, Joe?
Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and you guys know Team Idaho. If you guys, when you guys win this thing, there'll be a culmination of the next 5 to 10 series of this, and they're going to put all the champions together. You know how it's going to be, right?
Yeah.
So you want to be that. You want to be that champion. You want to be in that all-star cast, right? I'm telling you straight up, that's where y'all want to be. So y'all work hard and go get it done.
Joe, for perspective, is there any stats on what are the chances of actually drawing for the Hunt Wars? I mean, do they say how many people normally apply for it and how many people, they draft out?
Do you know any of that? I don't know what the numbers were this season, because after season 1 happened, I think there were only a total of, for those 4 spots or for those 8 spots, there were only like a total of 47 people that put in for that.
Oh, wow. So chances are high.
The odds were incredible. That was season 1, but after season 1, and when we started promoting it, did you have some, Chav, that you know about that, or?
I was just going to say that was season 1, so it'll be, the odds are probably were different.
Oh yeah, they were
doubled or tripled.
They were way different.
The question is the shooter and the caller set, or can they alternate?
No, it's set. One person is licensed to be a shooter, right? So, and really, when you talk caller, you're talking about that team scenario, because it could be different. It could be a situation where they're putting on an actual scenario to bring something in, and where one guy's on the other guy's shoulder, and yet, even though he's the shooter, Jonathan's got to be able to grunt stop that bull, maybe scream stop that bull. Can he? Can you do that, Jonathan? Man, can you?
No,
I can.
You have a diaphragm with you, bro? Huh?
Can he use a call in
around the corner?
We're gonna put him on the spot, man.
No, what I'm not asking.
So what Beto is asking is it allowed?
Oh yes. Oh, absolutely, man. Yeah.
Got you.
Absolutely.
I didn't know if the rules allowed only one caller, or does the shooter have the ability to use a mouth diaphragm and call? Could he? Because no doubt he should be able to, but can he in the rules?
Now I tell you what, when we met, this guy wasn't doing this, and I would say, Jonathan, you got that diaphragm in your mouth, bro? Huh? Put that thing in your mouth. You got a bull that's coming. He's going through your shooting lane, man. And he's going through, and he is where he can see you, and you haven't drawn yet. What are you going to do, man? Show us. Yes, sir.
Here we go. Yeah.
And let me tell you what, dude, that sounds so much better, man.
Manano, did you see that?
Yeah, I saw it. I'm able to do it without a diaphragm.
And he didn't have a phone.
Do it, Manano. Do it, Manano.
Do it, Manano.
Dude, I'm not even gonna say how ugly that sounds, dude. It's just like I'm not even gonna go.
Jonathan just won the Hunt Wars.
They're gonna stop.
If Manano was there, Jonathan just won it.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us tonight. All of us want to wish you all the best. We're in everybody's corner, and you guys have a great group of people. I mean, I've seen the camaraderie. It's going to be a great time. It's going to be a great camp, and we're looking forward to watching you this season, man.
Yeah,
best of luck, guys. Enjoy it.
Enjoy it.
Memories. That's what it's all about.
You guys have a good
one, buddy.
Thanks for joining us. Have a good evening. How cool, man. That's team number 2. Okay, Jonathan, Scott, and Brent, how are you there?
Are they going to have? They're going to have 4 teams, Joe?
4 teams, man. 4 teams.
14, yeah.
So we have, and it's basically, it was before, last year it was 4 teams. Well, what they did 2 in the beginning of the season. They did 2 at the end of the season. This year, it's king of the camp. They got all 4 teams in there on the second half of the archery season, and it's king of the camp, man. They're all going to go out and see who's going to get it done there. So I'm excited to see an animal hit the ground, man, because these boys are working. They're working at it, and I get to see them. We meet every week. they get a few things I tell them to work on, to bring in. And every time we get on, man, the first thing that we do is we have a little calling thing. Everybody has to step up and do their calling, right? So it's pretty cool to see how far they're coming along and learning the elk behavior. Because like you saw or heard from Brent, you know, you can have elk knowledge. As far as, I mean, they've been rifle hunting elk for years, man, and putting elk on the ground. But now when you start talking about the intimacies of it, when you start talking about the behaviors, when you start talking about, you know, one reaction to another action and a consequence, then things change a little bit. So it's pretty cool to see their growth.
Dang, Skippy. No doubt. It's so good to have them on. Well, guys, y'all know what time it is. It's time for ElkBros shout out. Shout out to a few cities with the most listeners topping our charts this week.
Yeah, buddy. And first, we want to thank those folks giving us those incredible reviews on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. Oh, and you know, it's so cool when we get this because Wyoming Elk Hunter went on there, and this is a guy that's been hunting elk for a long time, and he was like, you know, I've been at it a long time, and even still, he keeps coming back to the show because he's getting so much enjoyment out of that. He really loves hearing the different things that we bring to the show, and he's getting value every time. And he just is so thankful. He gave us so many kind words, and I want to thank you, Bud, for the blessings as well. And then we had CLB Niner, and we had Car Medell. I wish you guys would put your names up there, man, when y'all do that so we could give you these shout outs. But he says he appreciates how well we communicate our techniques when we do the show and everything. So that's really cool when we get those. And guys, get this, man, you guys out there, you listeners, our ratings, we've always been 50%. We've been over 50% of our reviews to our ratings. Our ratings just popped over 300 ratings, and we're at 153 reviews. So we got to get to work on those reviews, man, because we want to keep that stat going up, man. Oh, and also remember, grinders, we want you to be part of the show. Send a 15 to 20 second video shout out through, you can send it as a message on our ElkBros Instagram. You can email it to me at joe@elkbros.com. We want you to do that 15, 20 seconds that you have a clip and of who you are, where you are, something special about where you are that you celebrate, man. And we would love to have your face celebrate your place right here on the show, man. So do that. And one last thing before we get to those top listening cities was I had a DM that came from a guy on Instagram and started asking some questions and everything. And then once we got to a point, he's like, the only reason I got on Instagram was hopefully so you guys could give me a shout out. He says, I love the show, this and that on there. And I was like, okay, but so where are you from? And so we could give you a shout out. And his name is Lance Meads. And he tells me he's from Elizabeth City, North Carolina. And then he tells me the real North Carolina. And unbeknownst to him, I was raised in Moyock, North Carolina, a stone's throw from Elizabeth City. You know, we went there for groceries, for church and all that. So it was so cool, man, to talk to somebody from my country back in North Carolina, man.
That's so way cool.
Yeah, it was. He's got family in Currituck. I went to Currituck High School, and we both cut our teeth doing the same thing with squirrels, ducks, and everything like that. That's where this all started, man.
They had high school back then, Joe.
K through 12, baby.
And I passed English, Luis.
Manano won't ever pass it.
Barely, man. I was really good at geometry.
No, you still don't know what a circle is.
You don't say no, a circle, then a rectangle.
No, not from a square, I promise you.
So there's my shout out to Lance Meads, man. And brother, thanks for listening all the way from the Carolinas. And it's so cool how we get connected like that to all these different places, man.
Social media.
So guys, now for our top listening cities.
Yes, sir. This city, Joe, is a leader in the cybersecurity industry. This week's top listening city borders Lake St. Clair and in part of the northern Detroit metro area. This city produced sugar, and milk as a part of the small family farms that were the backbone of the economy of this city. And at its peak, the creamery farm produced more than 5,000 quarts of milk a day for the Detroit area market. This city was named after a decorated veteran and hero of the War of 1812 in none other than Macomb, Michigan.
Macomb, Michigan. Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Joe, you got to stop messing with Beto like that, man. That's just messed up.
Yeah, I'm so glad that.
What, man?
You had to increase the font for Beto.
The what?
I have to increase the what?
The font size.
Font size.
Why you got it? What do you mean? Why
That's just not.
make it?
That's just not
So
right,
he's
man.
he's looking at the script and he's looking at the script in Manano and I spell Cole Coal. How do you like that, man? Yeah. And Chav, their text is all small. Gilbert's is all big.
I know. It's
Oh, man.
That's just because he wants me to enunciate it louder, man.
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to be screaming for that one.
Manano, you're up
All
next,
right,
bro.
bros. Okay, our next top listening city survived two huge natural disasters: the 1983 flood and mudslides. Then in 2011, a severe windstorm caused $8 million in damages. Originally, it was named Dual Settlement in Cherry Creek. However, when an 1850s survey found that the town was precisely located in the center between Farmington and Bountiful, the name was then changed to, you guess it, Centerville, Utah.
Centerville, Utah.
Utah.
I thought for a little bit I wasn't going to have to speed you up on that one. You were
No, you're gonna have to.
He got Bountiful too, man.
I didn't want to
Did
say it,
really
but
good, Manano.
Oh, it was
Slam
good.
that
You
one,
know,
bro.
really
At least a
polite
1.5.
and kind guy, you know, speaking
Slammed it,
slow
dude.
and properly.
man.
at least a
Speak
1.5,
slow
huh?
and carrying an armored tank. That's what I say.
Oh, yeah.
A Cherry Cheek. Yeah, I think they might take that name, man. Cherry
Yeah,
Cheek,
man.
but yeah,
Cherry
that's
Cheek,
pretty
yeah.
good, man. Yeah, that's awesome.
Sedan Creek.
Cole with an A.
With an A, yeah.
Cole with an
This
A.
is what you get for Christmas, everybody.
Yeah. You lived with me.
Yeah. Part of the Jackson metropolitan area, our next top listening city was once a possible site for Mississippi University back in 1841. This city is proud of its heritage and offers Southern hospitality to all. Capitalizing on the theme of Mississippi, the hospitality state, the city held yearly beauty contests to send representatives to the Miss Mississippi and Miss Hospitality contests in Brandon, Mississippi.
Brandon, Mississippi.
In Mississippi in the house.
You know, I was reading about them, man. I had to go and check it out, Brandon and everything. And when I was looking and they were looking at the history, I guess there was such a rivalry between Brandon and another city close to them that they said for like 60 years or something that the stuff that happened between these two places was almost felonious, man. I mean, it was like
They were fighting, huh?
oh man, they took that rivalry serious, bud. So
Super serious.
and that's
I tell
why
you
I was
what,
like,
I've been looking. I don't know if I should say this on the podcast or not, but Mississippi is on my calendar for doing some whitetail hunting. There's a lot of public land out there.
Absolutely.
well, and aren't they allowed a deer a day?
A deer a day.
Dude,
That's
like
correct.
6 or
A buck
something
a day.
crazy. I was looking
A
at
buck
the
a day.
tag, and the amount you were allowed to kill throughout a season was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think you're allowed like 1 or 2 per day, and then like 6 within a certain period,
Yeah.
time period. It's crazy.
Wow.
That's
Yeah,
awesome, man.
I've hunted in Bibb County, Alabama, and you're allowed a buck a day in
Yeah.
their deer season. Bibb
That's
County,
really cool.
Alabama. Yep,
That's awesome.
Wow. They got the numbers.
they do.
Yeah.
Next up, located adjacent to the nearby site of Sacagawea State Park that honors the Native American guide of the Lewis and Clark expedition. One of the Washington Tri-Cities, it is ranked as one of the 50 most popular mid-sized cities to relocate and rated in the top 10 for most affordable places to live in Washington. Located at the confluence of the Columbia and Snake Rivers, this city is a fisherman's paradise called Pasco, Washington.
Pasco, Washington.
Washington, beautiful place, man.
How many
Coast
weeks in a
house.
row has listeners from Washington been talked
Lots.
about,
Oh,
man?
they've been,
Lots, Joe.
Unbelievable.
The West keeps showing out. California, Oregon, Utah, Washington. I mean, it just
Yeah.
keeps showing up.
It was cool to see Mississippi break that up, man. That was awesome.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed in my Lone Star State's not in the hunt, man. You boys
What's
better
up
get
with
on
that?
the ball.
What's
I
up
know.
with that?
Tell
You know,
them.
I
Bunch of
thought Dallas would
slackers.
be in. Manano would at least listen, maybe.
Exactly.
You know?
He never does. He still doesn't know that Beto still introduced me as the leader of the Venezuelan Mafia every podcast. He's not in.
Beto, if you do that again,
Oh, what y'all are talking about, man? Y'all are all the way off, man. It's never happened.
Okay, I got the last one, and it's in fine print, so I gotta look closely at it.
He's
It says-
making fun. Chav,
Okay.
did Chav just bust on me, man?
Ah, yeah.
For sure.
There you go.
Sure did.
Silent Ninja
That's
cracking a joke.
hilarious.
Okay, this top listening city is borough of Pittsburgh and is located southeast of the downtown metropolis. Though highly residential, it is home to one of America's oldest traditional amusement parks, Kennywood Park. Other key employers include Advanced Naval Nuclear Propulsion Technology Research Facilities and the Bettis Atomic Power Laboratories, and this is in West Mifflin, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, West Mifflin,
West
man.
Mifflin.
I don't think that's how you spelled Pittsburgh, though.
And that is how you
Oh, is
spell
there?
Pittsburgh, bro.
That dang sure ain't how you spell coal.
Yeah, well, hey, I told you I barely passed English, man. I'm
It's that
telling
dang
you.
No
autocorrect. It's that dang
No judgment.
autocorrect.
Eighth
man.
grade here.
Yeah, so
Man,
dude, man, I
autocorrect.
get in, and you know, I tell you what, if you're gonna live in this town, you had better have your stuff together. I mean, you better know your math, your science. I mean, that place is kicking, huh?
I bet you that West Mifflin is close to the Pennsylvania cat killer's house. I'm telling you right now, he grew up right there in Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
Mr.
But there's
Brendan
some-
Houlihan.
But there's some guys out there that really know geometry.
All right, guys, let's get to the content, man. Let's talk about tonight's show. And
Sounds good.
and look, this was an idea that I had from. I actually had some listeners that sent in some questions, and what I was starting to notice was that, and it happens in all of the shows. We do it, other shows do it, books do it, TV shows do it, but we always talk about certain points in a hunt. Like we tell people, you need to go out there, you need to get a response, right? After you get a response, then you got to do a setup,
distance,
right?
yeah.
You know, and once you do a setup, man, then you get that animal coming in range. And then once he's in range, man, now it's go time, right? You know, you got to prepare to take that animal, and then it's all about your shot. So when you look at it like that, it's like, oh, that's easy. That's easy, man. I get a response. I do a setup. He comes into range. He's in my comfortable shooting range, and I'm gonna shoot him. I mean, it sounds real simple like that. But what I started to notice was that there were a lot of gaps, and there are a lot of gaps. There's a lot of variables between each of those main points happening. It has all these subplots and subpoints where people get lost. Like, once I get a response, you know, from there to a setup, there's these things that go on and that happen that I'm not ready for, because I'm going to see them and I'm going to make a mistake, or it's going to be a failure point. And that's what we're all about, stopping that. So this whole series is called Archery Elk Hunting from Response to Release, Connecting the Dots. And
Like it.
what we're going to do is, in this series, we're going to start with, for example, boom, from you get a response right there. And between you get a response and you have to set up. what are some of those variables and some of those things that happen? And I just want you guys to think about that, man. Okay, you hear a bull bugle. He screams. I mean, you're doing a location bugle, and man, you've been going mile after mile. You've been doing your cow calls. You're doing your location bugles, and all of a sudden you get an answer. Well, and I'm not saying an answer where Manano and Luis get to, ignore the fact that there was an answer. I'm saying that they're really excited about the answer.
That's
it's
true.
Did you hear something, boys? No, Joe, we didn't hear nothing, man. We didn't hear nothing.
7:30 p.m.
No.
After 12 miles.
No. We're deaf, Joe.
Run down the bottom and the bulls responded on the top.
Yeah.
Did you hear something, Manano? No.
So think about that, though. Think about it. You've been going all those miles now, and it's like prime time in the morning, and you get a response. What are some of those things going through your head, and what are some of those things that we're going to encounter between there and do the setup? Like, for example, first thing is, and I'll tell you, most people, when they hear a response, the first thing they want to do is they want to set up.
Yeah, and that's the wrong thing to do.
Well, but it
depends.
It's sad. But it's sad.
Well, you got to figure out how far he is.
Right.
Well,
That's
but
the
what I'm
first thing
saying
you got to
is,
do.
if they were to listen to every show and they said you get a response and then you have a setup, right? So the first thing they think is, I got a response, I got to set up. So let's clarify that. You said depends, right? So do we set up, or what do we do when we hear that?
Got to
response?
figure out how far he is, Joe.
Yeah.
First
All
off.
right.
Got to know
Okay.
how far he is.
Why is the
So if
distance
he's 400, because, okay, you hear the bugle, right? 9 times out of 10, it's a location bugle back. So you don't really understand his tone, right? There's a difference in that response. So what kind of response did you get?
And then to your point,
bugle, did you get a
Beto,
real angry, I mean, like he's stepping on you and he's coming, how far is he?
exactly. The distance will make a difference whether you decide to close in the distance
And
first.
what your wind is.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because what kind of, I mean, if he's 400 yards away, is he going to be screaming at you like, no, man. I mean, he's so far away at that point in time, right?
What time of year are we in? Are we in early season, or
That's a great point right there.
Are we in the heat of the last week of September, first part of October, where it is freaking bonkers,
Yeah, well,
and they're all sounding off.
And let's say you get a response, so it doesn't matter, and he's 400 yards away or 600 yards away. Are we going to set up?
No, sir.
No. Why not, man?
Because
you're not in his bubble yet.
You're not in his bubble yet. That's right.
Yeah.
All right. So here we go. There's a word right there. Is that another thing that people always hear is that, you need to close the distance. So here's the questions. How close do I need to be? What is this thing called a red zone? And when am I in an elk's bubble? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, how close, if I hear an animal that goes off, how close, and he's 400 yards, how close do I want to get to that animal?
Immediately, you want to cut the distance in half. Immediately, you want to cut that distance in half.
All right.
And then you may try him again, see what kind of response you get out of it after
what if the wind is wrong?
Oh, for sure. For sure. Have to have the wind right to even pursue. If the wind's wrong, we're not going.
So what you're saying is
wrong,
or work around it.
Wrong, you could potentially have another mile of hiking to get it correct.
Or two.
Yeah.
Or two to get around the backside of it.
So I get where you're coming from now, Joe.
Yeah.
You're wanting us to tell the things that we don't even think about anymore. We just react.
Absolutely, because
we automatically pull our puffer bottle out,
Exactly.
check the wind, and we're like, the bull is right there and it's blowing right to him. We got to run now and get a mile that way and circle around.
Exactly.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So that's exactly what I'm saying, man, is we go through a mental process and we go through that mental process in our head. that we're working from a response to a setup, but there's so many decisions. Again, we're connecting the dots here. So there's so many decisions that happen along the way that we take for granted. You hear that bull bugle like that, you're exactly right, man. That wind checker's coming out, or if, you know, unless it's a breeze that you know what's going on, you're also considering, are you below the animal? Are you above the animal? What's the thermals doing? You know, do you have to rock around to get the thermals and the breeze in your direction?
So, what time of day is it?
Absolutely. So number one, I want to close the distance, but I got to close the distance in a way that I have the wind, right?
100%. Yeah.
Right?
And that may mean, like Cole said, that may mean going a half a mile out of the way to close the distance. Yeah. Because I mean, he's only 400, but we might have to go 800 to 1,000 to cut it, right? And then get back in his wheelhouse so the wind doesn't booger us. That's the most important thing, is not burning your setup before you can set up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's important. Go ahead, Chav.
Yeah.
I think another thing too is, you know, backtrack just a little bit from what we're talking about is, you know, Gilbert mentioned time of day, and we talk a lot about locating them in the dark. So if it's in the morning, what do? You know, when you hear a bugle, you know, it's still dark. And then if it's at night and you hear a bugle, what do? I know people have different ideas on that. I know at night you want to back out of that area, come back in the morning. But if you hear a bugle early in the morning, which is still dark, and you got about an hour to or a half hour before daylight, what's your strategy there?
Absolutely. You're going to get in and you're going to cut that distance.
Joe would go forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no, we're going to cut it in half for sure.
Well, because if it's still dark, here's the deal. First thing in the morning, whether that bull, if it's early season, he's with other bulls, then there's going to be a lot more lingering than if it's later season, he's with cows. If he's with cows, man, there's going to be a certain point of time that those critters are going to stay in their feed area before they start to move into the trees and move to a bed area. If you are out there and you get those animals sounding off with an hour before we have daylight, or 45 or a half hour before gray light, you want to get in as tight, because, you know, especially now, depending your tightness, that's another thing. People is like, well, how close can I get? And that's going to depend on terrain, and it's going to depend on vegetation, man, because if it's thick, if it's real thick country, and I can jump in, man, I can get in 100 yards on that puppy, man. Now, I don't know in the dark I'm going to do that. You know, in the dark, I might go in and I'm going to go to another part here in a second, but I'm going to get in there at least 150 if I can. So here's the thing. I've said that animal is 400 yards away, right? How do I know when, and I say I want to get in to 150. So if he's 400 yards and I do the math, I got to be, you know, 250 yards, right? So how do I know and gauge when I'm getting to a certain distance on an animal?
You're counting your steps.
Yeah.
I do.
Counting steps, and we can also nowadays, with our really good stuff on our phones from Onyx and Base Maps and Fat Maps, all of that, we can actually project that 250 yards, right? Put a point down and know that we're going to go to it.
You take that Base Map app and you have it in navigation. You point it towards that critter. You're going to have a navigation line that's going to go out. It's going to show you 200 yards. You're going to pop a waypoint and you're going to go.
Walk.
Okay. If you don't want to do that, you know, what I do is I look in line with where I'm going. Sure. I always carry a little tiny compass to get my bearing. I check my compass and I start heading in that direction, and I count steps, especially if I'm trying to cut down, you know, from just 100 yards. If I'm trying to do that, that's an easy, you know, but it's just one way of knowing how far you go, you know, as far as that goes. But
I got a point that it's probably a good point of discussion. It's important to understand when to call again when you're traveling and closing that distance, because especially if the wind is not in your favor, meaning not blowing towards you and it's blowing towards the animal, you want to be quiet until you're completely out of that stream that is blowing your scent to the animal, because otherwise your sound is going to alert the animal in the direction in which you're coming from, and he's going to be lifting his nose up and smelling and trying to pick up a scent for where the sound is coming from as well. So
it depends on how close you are, Luis. I mean,
if 90% of the time, if you're in his scent, you're never going to hear him again.
Yeah, it ain't going to happen, man.
He's out.
And I don't worry about being quiet at those distances like that, unless I'm at a point in a setup, which we'll talk about later. But you've got to go.
You don't think they can probably pick you up at 200 yards?
With what happens with the wind at 200 yards, with what happens with the wind, depending on what's going there, I have a feeling.
If you ain't got the wind at 200 yards, he's got you.
Yeah,
he's got you. I mean, he's going to smell you within 200 yards.
That's what I'm thinking, but.
That's why it's so important to use the wind.
But terrain can shift wind too. So if you're getting a response from that animal and you don't think the wind is right, then you got to move and get it right, because if he's responding, even though you don't think the wind is right, something is happening with that terrain or with other thermal directions that are keeping him from smelling you. So you had better get it right, because you have an opportunity.
And to answer Luis's question, really, what distance are you going to check his temperature again? For me, it's the half zone, right? So if I'm in within 200, now I'm going to check his temperature again, because I'm only 50 to 100 yards out of that bubble that I want to be in. So I'm going to check his temperature one more time when I get in there, and then
I want you to come right back to what you just said. And I want you to remember that you said you're going to check his temperature. I want to come back to that conversation, but you mentioned in his bubble, and we've talked about cutting and how close. And you said that you want to be in that 200, 150 mark is what you said, right? There's a lot of people that say that as well. In being able to check something. But then we talk about in a bubble, and we talk about red zone. So in a bubble is really when you are under that 100-yard mark, that you're like under 100 to 80 yards. I mean, you're in tight on them. Now, that's what we consider being in a bubble of a herd or a bull and his cows. You're in so tight that it's difficult to get that tight sometimes, depending on the terrain and the vegetation. But you're so close that now, whatever scenario you go into, that bull's going to have to react in some way. So that's what we mean by bubble, is underneath. I mean, you're in that 100 to 80. You're trying to get as tight as you can on those animals, where you're actually seeing them sometimes. You're seeing cows, and you know that you're in that direct vicinity. When we talk about red zone,
that's the kill zone.
That red zone is when we're in a setup and that critter's in. It's the same red zone as in football, man. Sure. We're getting ready to score. We should be scoring. That's when they're getting in the red zone right there. Yeah. So they're getting
effective killing range.
Effective killing range, exactly there. So now that we have that, now we go back to where you say that you're checking that temperature. Now, Gilbert, here's the thing I want to ask you about that, man. It's in the dark. You've cut it to 200 yards.
Whoa. It's in the dark.
Okay,
so we're in the dark now. Okay.
We're still in the dark. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we get into 200 yards. Are you still going to check the temperature?
No, I'm just going to keep moving. I'm going to get inside. I'm going to try to get as close as I can to lay eyes on them. Right. I'm going to keep easing up there. In the dark. I'm going to keep easing up there to 150 yards, man. And I'm going to keep easing up there to about 150 yards. And then I'm going to wait for that magical time in the morning to check his temperature. Because in the dark, you don't want to call him in, so you want to be quiet, ninja quiet, man, getting up in there and setting yourself up to hear what he's got going on, hearing the cows, the whole 9 yards, and we're just going to be quiet. That 200 to 150 mark is ideal.
If you can get in there and you can hear talk going on, and then look, if you're hearing talk going on, you had better be paying attention what the vegetation is like, because their eyes in the dark is better than our eyes in the dark. So sometimes that 150 range in the dark is plenty close, man.
I agree.
Until you get that gray light. Sometimes 200 yards to me is plenty close in the dark. And I'm just going to sit down and we're going to listen. We've done this, right, Luis, Manano?
Oh, yes, several times.
Yeah. So we just get in tight as to where we can hear something, hopefully, and hear what's happening with those responses, so that now we start to get that gray light Now we can start moving in a little bit closer, right?
Joe, you and I walked into a middle of a herd in the gray light. Walked into the middle of it. Seriously, walked into the middle of the herd. And I'm like, Joe. And you know, Joe don't hear so well, so I kind of hit him in the back of that.
Because you're whispering, dude. You're whispering.
He turns and looks at me, and I'm like, Joe, I think I see an elk right here in front of you. And he says, give me my binoculars. So I give him his binoculars, and he goes,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Get down. I mean, dude. And then all of a sudden you hear, yeah. They're all talking around us. We're in the middle of the herd. We just walked right into the middle of them in the gray light.
Grinders tuning in, thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Elk Hunting Podcast. Our goal is to share our knowledge and help you flatten that learning curve so that you too can have some of the very same incredible experiences that have given all of us here at ElkBros a lifetime of memories. If you like what you hear or see, you can get all of this information plus so much more from our Base Camp Elk Hunting Training Camp, the first in a series of online courses from our Blue Collar Elk Academy. Our Base Camp Training Camp allows me to use my coaching style and share almost 40 years of elk hunting experiences successfully hunting elk on public lands, as well as over 20 years guiding hunters of all ages and experience levels. This course will be like nothing you have ever experienced in concept and structure, using success-based coaching techniques that will elevate your confidence and skill sets. Our camp will prepare you specifically from that final moment most in your control, those final minutes or seconds the elk is in front of you, backwards through each step and level, allowing you to see, visualize, understand, and relate every coaching point to what lies ahead, the next step, the next thought process, the next success. Because y'all, you've already been there. You know what it looks like. By tapping my 30 years of teaching and coaching experience, our camps are developed considering multiple learning modes with text, visuals, audio, as well as video. And Base Camp will benefit those new to elk hunting all the way to the 10 to 15 year vet. So if you are looking for that one thing to help you fill that tag this year, invest in the most important piece of equipment there is, you and your elk hunting knowledge. You can find the Blue Collar Elk Hunting Academy and the Base Camp Training Camp at ElkBros.com. That's ElkBros.com. Keep dreaming of the screaming, believing in achieving, and most of all, keep grinding.
Wow.
Yeah.
So cool. But we're in the bubble, right?
Yeah, we're totally in the bubble, man. We were at the point where we didn't have to say a word. We just had to wait for light and watch those critters, and that bull came walking by, and I shot that bull over there. But you know,
so cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. But man, we were lucky son of a guns to get in like that, man. Exactly. How it happened. But you know, that's yeah.
Again, we had a good wind. We were traveling into the wind, right? And just kind of easing forward, looking for anything. And Joe had just let out a series of cow calls and a location bugle. And both of us had thought, well, I kind of heard something, but not really knowing, and just eased up in there to the middle. Thank God I
because it was it was up a hill. We just went over a little rise, right?
Yes,
yeah, like that.
Joe always goes uphill. Or in circles. So for sure, but we doubled up. I mean, we doubled up and killed bulls that morning together. It was epic, man. It was so cool. So yeah, I mean, listen.
So let's change the timing though, Gilbert.
Sure,
now we're not morning. Now we're not dark. Let's say that we're in that morning light. It's like that first 10, 15 minutes, and now you've gotten to that 200 mark. Now, do I call as I'm closing in? If I do, what calls do I use?
Yeah, Joe, for me, I think the more silent you can be, the better until you see them. I'm going to keep easing in there as long as I got the wind. I'm going to keep easing in there and seeing what he says. Now, if I don't hear him at all and I've got within 100 yards of them, then I'm probably going to go ahead and check his pulse, see what's up with him.
I'd make sure I'd make sure I'm in a setup before I check anything.
Yeah, I was gonna say setup.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to my spike this last year.
You can't. How many times, Joe, have we just been easing along and then right back at us? I mean, now you got to set up, right?
Yeah.
Holy crap, here it comes, you know.
And that's it. That's what we call an oh crap moment. Everybody's dropping down. You're trying to get something behind you. The setup is what it is, man. It's just like
this way. Once you get in there within 100 yards, you can already go ahead and make your setup, right?
Yeah.
And see if he's going to play ball.
So Cole, have you ever been going through, man, when it is that situation, it's thick woods, and you know how you end up having to go around logs, you're going around rocks, you get a little bit like, oh, was it that direction, this direction? And then you start getting antsy like, well, where did they go, man? What do you do with that? I mean, if he's not sounding off, do you call and try to locate where he's at again? What's the risk in that factor? Or?
So I've done it both ways. 2-3 years ago, Kyle and I had this very similar situation where, you know, the bull sounded off. We were check the wind. We did all that, and we're going to close in. And I didn't think yet I was really in that bubble, and I was trying to check his temperature. Not only that, make sure that he was still in that same spot, because it was kind of the same scenario. It was just early morning, and that bull was just kind of moving up to his bed. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I know he had to have been somewhere close in here. And this instance, I let out a locate bugle, because that's what I located him with. I covered the distance, and I'll be dang if I didn't pass the bull up. So then,
you know.
Yeah. Then we're behind. And at that point, I was just like, well, crap. And it was one of those situations where he thought I was just another bull following up behind him, and he kept moving up the drainage because he didn't want to come back where he had just come from. So we ended up having to wait because the thermals were not in our favor, and he bugled his way up to bed, and then we ended up sneaking around.
Did he have cows with him? Did he have cows with him?
No, sir. He sure didn't.
So different animal, right? That's a different animal right there, right?
Yeah. He responded every single time that I would call to him, but he was in transition at that point.
And what time of year, Cole? Do you remember? Early, late?
This was probably, it was September. It's probably around the 8th. Like right when they were kind of doing some cow gathering.
Yeah, and so we still have some buddy stuff going on right then too as well. So that's a little bit different bull, and that's just the thing is when you're moving in and you're at that 200 mark. If you're late season when that bull is cowed up, now you've got to worry a little bit, because now you've already announced yourself as a bull back there, right?
Yep.
And you start to come in. Well, at that 200 yards, you're still not pressuring too much. And you could actually find out how territorial that bull is being like that. But still, you got to be careful, because, man, he could just turn and start pushing those bulls. So if you want to locate him, I would go with, some calf sounds, or, so I would try that first to see if he's going to pipe off without me trying to spook him, or without me being overly aggressive, or him thinking that he's being pressured by a bull. So that's the thing that I'm saying is okay, if I'm coming in, I really want to listen as I'm coming and try to hear them if possible. That's the best scenario.
On like a bull like that, I would expect, that bull with cows, let's say I did throw that location bugle out there to him, he's probably not going to locate bugle back to me. He's probably going to give me a slight little sassy response to almost just to tell me to stay back. Yeah.
Or he may not respond at all.
Yes, sir.
He may not respond at all. He may dummy up so you don't find his cows.
I have a feeling that bull, if his cows are hearing you coming in, I have a feeling he's going to do something just to let them know that he's the bull. So, when you hear that, when he's just doing that too, just to growl and warn you, immediately he's like, stay away, man. He's doing that stay away type thing. So, that's one thing that you've got to as you're coming in, depending on time of year, early time or late time, time of day, you know, you've got some things you got to think about. Now, if it's first thing at daylight, when those cows aren't moving up to bed, you got a pretty good chance at maybe getting in his territory and making him territorial, or then getting in that bubble once you know where he's at, and then doing a challenge like that. So there's different variables and sequences to how you want to deal with that. Remember, as you're coming in and you're like, well, where the heck is he? There's some guys, man, you get nervous and it's like, well, I want to hear him bugle the whole time. So they'll keep calling as they're coming in. They'll call their way, and sometimes aggressively, and all they're doing there is setting themselves up for frustration.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, because they know exactly where you're at. You know, for me, your silence is so empowering because they don't know where you are. You know, once he sounds off and identifies his location, and let's just say you're in around him and he's going to sound off multiple times as you're closing that gap. Mm-hmm. As long as he's being vocal, you don't have to say a thing. You just get in there and keep closing the gap.
But
right?
you take that bull that Cole was dealing with on the 8th that's just calling up to bed. I tell you what, man, I'm going to call that bull right to me every time, man. You know, I'm going to.
You can make him think that there's a cow there in
Absolutely,
estrus. And son, it is on like Donkey Kong. He'll come run you over if he thinks there's a cow there in estrus.
So there's different modes at different times. And that's what we're trying to tell you. But as you're going to this, when you get the response, man, and you're going, okay, what do I do? Do I set up or do I close the distance? Well, if that bull screams at 100 yards, you're setting up. That bull screams at 200 yards, there's a good chance you're setting up, or at least you're keeping it right there. That bull screams at 400 to 600 yards, you're getting after it, man. You're cutting that distance. 300 yards, I'm cutting that distance, all right? You're checking that wind. You're getting that wind right. How far do you go before that? You want to at least get into that 200, 150 range. If you're getting daylight where you can see them, if it's early season and it's just a bull out there, man, I wouldn't push that. If it's just a bull on his own, I'm setting up, especially if I see him, and I'm pulling that booger all the way to me. I'm going to give it to him. Now, I better set up using the terrain, or I better have a person behind me calling that's going to bring him in, or throwing my calls to the back to bring him in, right? But if that's early season with a lone bull, that's a different bull right there, man. Or if it's even that late season with a herd bull and he's got satellites around, those are different bulls, man, that you can do some different things with. So
Joe, on when you talk about 150 or 200 yards, a lot of times, you know, let's talk about some brand new guys that's never even heard of bugle. How can you help a guy decide, like, when they hear that bugle, how do you like judge that distance? Or because I that's one of those things, like, I immediately, when me and Kyle are together, or even like Bear, the guy that filmed my hunt last year, when I killed my bull, when it was all said and done, he was like, dude, when you were about to like shoot, you looked like you were getting ready to shoot. He said, I thought the bull was a mile down the valley, and he was 45 yards from us.
Because what happens is,
he was like, I was blown away. So how do you judge that distance, you know, when you're out there for the first time?
So that's exactly right, because I don't know how many people have experienced it, but when you hear a bull off, I mean, he can be off 600, 800 yards, man. And they sound so loud, man. And they have that haunting. It's not like you hear everything distinct. It's just that beautiful haunting sound that kind of echoes. It's real eerie when they're far away, but it seems so loud. And yet when they're 40, 60, 80 yards on you, it's almost like they're 300 yards away, because they get real airy. It almost doesn't have that same effect. It's like the sound is lost when they're close up to you. So when you hear something that sounds like, you know, real like light, airy bugle, man, that booger is right on top of you. He's right on top of you.
Way I do it, Joe, to know is I'll hear the inflection in his the rasp in his tone. You'll hear that it's gravelly, right? Or even we call it growly, and you'll hear that little growl in his bugle, and you know, hey man, this cat's within, you know, a couple hundred yards of me, or inside 100 yards, you know, and when they're bugling right at you, you'll hear every little rasp coming out of that bugle, you know.
I think it'd be safe to say that the more harmonic it sounds, probably the further away it is.
Yeah,
but not always the case. But
you'll start to hear
point.
the nuances as it gets closer, man. When it starts to sound strong, you know, he'll be at 200 yards. And again, it depends on terrain, where it's bouncing, what time of day it is. If it's windy, you know, and you're hearing a bull, that's, you know, that bull's generally fairly close, man, if you're hearing them. And the way I judge it most of all is I go, Manano, Luis. And
Joe's going to hear them with their inside.
You know the way I judge it, Joe?
Huh? What's that?
The way I judge it, if I get Virulaques and I go like,
Goosebumps.
Goosebumps, they're tight. Huh?
But it's almost like you can hear them inhale and breathe and stuff whenever they're just right there. It's
and another thing, if you can hear them glunking, they tight. When you hear them glunking and
they're under 100 yards if you hear them glunking.
They in tight, brother. I'm telling you.
And a lot of times before those bulls bugle, they'll almost moan. They'll just kind of moan and then roll into a bugle. And far away, you'll never hear that moan.
No.
That's right.
And I know it's a cheap. This is a shameless plug. But if you go on our academy, if you're on our academy, I've actually put the sounds of what some of those elk bugles sound like at certain distances to help you kind of gauge that. Where you start to hear, okay, it's strong, but it's still melodic out there at that certain distance at 400. You know, now it's strong, and you're starting to hear that gravelly noise that, you know, where they're really when you can hear those lip balls really good at 200 yards, right? So as it starts to add that detail. As it adds that detail, it's closer to you. When you hear just that air in that detail, man, that booger's right on top of you, man. You can hear that booger breathing. You can hear him panting. You can hear him breathing. It's and glunking, he's right on top of you. So now that's an excellent question, and that's what I want to ask you though, Luis and Manano, because you guys always, you know, I had excellent ears back in the day, and I knew how I judged it, but now I'm dependent on other people around me, and I look at you and I ask you, Manano, I go, how far? And you'll tell me 400, you know, or Luis, you'll tell me 400. What is it that has set up that distance for you guys?
Don't act like they don't argue about it, Joe.
We always
400,
we always argue.
800.
So I go like 400, and then he goes like,
honestly,
and then he goes, no, and then he goes, Joe, that way, and the bull was that way. And we can't start. No.
So the first year we hunted together, it was absolutely like that. I mean, he's not exaggerating, right? But honestly, last year,
I think exaggerating.
No. I'm saying you're not. Like the first year, you're not exaggerating. It was like that. But I gotta say, the last year, I felt that we were kind of more in sync on just direction and distance, because it's an experience thing.
It's a learning thing, right? Absolutely.
And then so we kind of were more familiar with the sounds and the distances.
And then we go like.
Yeah.
And I tell people, anytime you can get eyes on elk, and listen to them and their bugles, that will help you to start gauge that. You look at them and then you go ahead and gauge, and they're at 200 yards and here are bugles. Okay, I start to get that, you know. You look down in there with your binos and he's down there 400, 600 yards away, and you hear how that sounds. It starts to gauge that for you. So that experience factor starts to come in. But if you don't have that, there's ways of listening to things like what we have that you can kind of gauge that. So
Joe's right though, man. If you can get in tight, you know, and even if you're not hunting, if you can get in tight and listen to the herd and the sounds that they make. I've been privy to a couple of events like that where I've been literally had dirt kicked on me in the middle of a herd like that. And I've been with Chav. We stalked into a middle of a herd with nothing but a grunt tube and a dadgum diaphragm call. And we snuck in on them within 110 yards. And I mean, we stayed there for an hour, and I chuckled with bulls. I cow called and brought cows to me, brought bulls to me. It was crazy fun. but just learning the language and just seeing their body language, because it changes every call you make. You'll watch those bulls change their body language. You'll watch the cows change their body language. I learned a tremendous amount just by being.
You watch them as much as you can, man. And if you kill an animal on first or second day and you got a 7-day hunt, stay there and learn, man.
Heck,
I mean,
yes.
learn something from these guys.
I'm going home with my
Tell your
buddies and
wife you
calling.
killed, though.
Yeah. There's that relationship part of the education right there, man. Yeah, don't tell your wife you killed, man. So,
Or tell her you got 4 days to pack that sucker out.
I like the way
Yeah, you're funny,
and
man.
definitely don't tell your wife you're more passionate about hunting than hanging out with her.
He said that.
Yeah, we didn't say
honest.
that.
That's a
So,
horrible advice.
Here's where we're at with this, man. This series, we just talked about when you get a response, what to do. Okay, for our grinders out there, if there's any questions that you developed from that, any scenarios that you'd like to be, that you got from that you didn't understand and what you should possibly do, then you email us, man. Email me, go to info@elkbros.com. You can email me directly, joe@elkbros.com. Send that in to me, and we'll put that on our next show in the mailbox, because we did the response part this time. Next week, what we're going to do is you're set up, and we're going to talk about those things that should be going through your head. We're going to connect the dots from the setup to when before that animal has come into range. Okay. So that's the area we're going to talk about next. And the way we break this down is, we said you get a response, you've set up, he's coming into range, he's in my range, and then the shot. Those are the major points that we're connecting the dots in between. And if you don't, if you still have some blanks and you have some areas in there, you make sure that you email us with the question. Give us your name, your city, where you're from. We'll give you a shout out, and we'll use that in there, because we're going to go to our mailbox right now. We're going to stop on that part of the series. We're going to connect and go again next week with that next part. And let's go down to the mailbox before we have to get out of here, guys.
Sounds good. Luis, you'll lead us off, brother.
So we have Mr. Caden from Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
So another Pennsylvania today.
All right.
That's
cool.
right.
Yeah.
So is it a good idea to try to call and locate elk during 2 days prior to the hunt starting?
Locating them?
Try to
Or to try
Not
and call
calling
and
them
locate.
in, but locating, yeah.
I say yes.
locating absolutely. I don't know about calling
Not
them in
calling
if
them
you're
in,
going to
He's
spook
wrong.
them.
Yeah, you don't need to call them in, but to locate, see if they're in the area, absolutely,
Yeah.
dude.
Locating at night, I think.
So it's more
Scouting.
scouting than anything else.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whatever
so-
don't take it to the point where you want to get them on video. You don't want to get photographs.
Yeah, no,
and
man, you don't want to
call these
educate 'em.
animals in. And I'm with Cole, man. I'd like to do some night stuff. I'd like to do some glassing early in the morning. I don't want to be walking through the woods during the day calling and have a bull come in on me. You're just educating them. Now, if you're going to be on a ridge in the morning or in the dark, or at night where you can locate and get an idea, then that's a whole different ball game. But don't put yourself in a situation where you've called it. It's like this. I always told our discus throwers and our javelin throwers, don't leave your best throw on the practice field.
Exactly. Yeah. Makes so much sense. Caden, here's something too, man. You definitely want to understand, what you're going to be doing to try and call those elk, right? And locate them. There's a difference in locating and calling, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to pull them into you to where you're in a tight setup and something happens and you blow them up and blow them out of there. Really, you're just trying to see if there's elk in the area. If you'll sit on that ridge and maybe do a broadcast bugle, you'll hear different bugles around you and understand. And they're creatures of habit, man. They're going to be around those locations daily, right? Yeah. And it also depends on what time of year you're doing this, where your water situation is, because a lot of those critters in the eastern states, they migrate a lot. They go from long distances from farms to go to water and stuff like that. So,
Oh, you mean the eastern part of the state?
yeah. So I'd really like to know where he's going to be hunting. That would help a lot to understand where he's going to be hunting, whether he's hunting in Pennsylvania or Kentucky, or if he's going to hunt out west, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah. Okay. I get you on the eastern. I just see the western mountains. And when you say the eastern side, I'm thinking like the eastern part of the state, which almost works because if you look at the eastern part of Colorado, right, the eastern part of Montana, you start to get out into those flats and stuff. Yeah. So that's a good one. Chav, you're up.
Okay. This is from Kelly Mendel from Wisconsin. Says, hey, bros, love the show. My question is about backpacking into the backcountry to hunt solo. How far do you think I can hunt and still be able to get an elk out without losing any meat? How would that distance change if I have a partner?
Go ahead, Chav.
Yeah, if you're an individual, if you're like Manano and Cole and Luis and Joe, they can probably hike a long ways and get that stuff out individually. But, some of us are limited as far as, strength and
endurance.
Endurance,
Cole,
right.
What's the miles that you limit yourself to if you're hunting with the pack in the backcountry, Cole, by yourself?
With myself, I try to, I usually carry a pretty good pack going into like my base camp. And then I'll, or my spike camp, I guess I would say. So I usually try to be within like, if I was loaded down with meat, I'm trying to be back at the truck within like a 6-hour pack out from where I kill that bull. That way I can try to get the majority of everything back to the truck. And really, I guess I would tell him like, it's going to make a difference between on like the time of year that it is, the time of the season, because if it's early season, I might only be going 2 miles because I'm real scared that I'm not going to be able to get the meat out within a 12-hour period. Okay. So that means me by myself packing meat 4 different trips minimum, probably, unless I'm just getting ridiculous with it. I might be able to make it in 3 by myself. Okay. So you don't want that meat to spoil. So you really have to judge that. And every one of us is going to be different. Like my solo pack out is going to be different than Joe's and Manano's and everybody else's, because we can kind of gauge on how far I'm going to be able to carry 80 pounds, So just know the limit of what you can safely leave that meat. Okay. If it's cold outside and it's freezing temperatures, man, then you've got 4 or 5 days, hang that meat up and you've got a long time to be able to get it out. So that might push your distance back even further. Same thing, with a partner, we don't really pay a whole lot of attention. It's just kind of mentally in the back of our heads, like, hey man, this is probably about as far as we're going to want
far away.
or be able to.
Yeah, we're going to have to bring a local bread and eat his ass here.
Yeah, it's it's
Yeah,
almost
so
go ahead.
There's just a lot of factors in there, that could change my mind on being from a mile to 5 miles in different times of the month.
Terrain, topography.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because
I feel like I could do 2.5 miles, but and depending on the terrain. We Chav and I killed a bull a few years back. Son, it was a hike to go get him, And if I wouldn't have had the boys with us, I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't know that I could have done that hike in 12 hours right by myself. I could have got a quarter at a time because it was 2 miles from where we shot him there and back.
Yeah, I killed a bull on August 31st 2 years ago, 4 hours into the season, and Kyle and I made the decision. We were 6.5 miles in whenever the bull dropped, and we made the decision to cut him up right then and there, pack him on our packs, and hike him right back to the truck out. We each took half of the bull, and it took us 9.5 hours to get six miles.
Yeah, that's
it was brutal.
Too, buddy.
So
that's pretty damn good.
What were you gonna say, Chav?
But it was 95 degrees, y'all, and we were in the middle of the middle of a burn.
Yeah, you have no choice.
There was nothing to do but pack that bull out.
Yeah.
Or lose meat, and I wasn't about to lose meat.
Yeah, what I was going to say is Joe and I both killed. He killed a bull. I killed a spike within a quarter mile of each other, but we were a half mile from the truck, and it took us a long time. I don't remember how many trips we took, but it was only a half mile from the truck. But go back and forth.
For two bulls.
For two bulls, right?
Yeah.
And that was crazy.
And well, the problem was we didn't even have packs, so we were carrying quarters on our shoulders, man, as we were going. Yeah, we were just,
On volcanic rock, and you know how that is.
And that's the other thing. It's fine if it's flat and it's everything like that, but you're dropping down into little canyons, coming back up on the other side on boulders, and
trying to get over deadfall that's in your chest.
Yeah, Beto really likes them volcanic rocks.
I know, man. I hate them things. They drive me batty. I had the couple years ago, I killed a bull, and it was in a horrible spot. I'm telling you, you ask the boys. I mean, Manano was so tired anyway, he fell asleep on my bull when we were trying to skin him. But the rocks, we had to navigate to, and it's straight up going back up to where we had to park. And it wasn't that far, maybe what, quarter, half mile to the buggy, if that, 400 yards straight up. But I mean, it's straight up. This volcanic rock was freaking horrible, man.
Yeah.
So it's super dangerous too. You got all that pack, that weight on your pack and everything. Something for our listeners, man, if y'all don't have them, get y'all some sticks, some hiking sticks, man. They're a lifesaver.
I wouldn't pack a bull out without trucking poles.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, man, if you're by yourself, don't go any farther than 3 miles, man. Try to keep it within 2.
You better be ready.
And if you've got a partner and the terrain allows to it, then I could think about 6 on that, but you had better be somebody that can handle that as well. It depends on your condition. Like I said, if I had some big boys with me doing that, it's one thing, but
I'm good for one trip.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's the thing.
Only one after that, son.
And here's the other thing, man. I mean,
and I'm going slow.
Depending on what country you're in, I've heard people say too, sometimes some people will portal it to halfway and then go back and get some more and come back like that if they find a better place to hang their meat down in a creek or something like that. And then that way they can kind of, do a little back and forth, portaging that all the way, back to where you need to get it there. And they say that the one thing you should leave behind you is your bow, because that means you got to go back. So
yeah, no doubt you're going to go back for that. Yeah.
And make sure you take the heaviest one out first, because you're going to want it to lighten up as you're going. So,
well, I think a lot of these Western states too, Joe, you can rent horses and you can rent alpacas, and there are services there that'll come pack your meat out for you too.
Yeah, there are, but and you got to take care of it till they get there too. Right. So I mean, there's a lot of consideration. And in Cole's example out there where he was at in that heat in the middle of nowhere like that, I couldn't see him waiting for packs. He's going to have to get that thing out of there. So he could pack it to a shady spot, but yeah. All right, guys, that's close this out. Gilbert, we'll see everybody next week.
Yeah, man, it's as always, Joe, unbelievable content with our series that's coming up. These aren't shameless plugs at all when we talk about our base camp. It is actually the very best.
I'm very proud of base camp, man.
Yeah, I mean, the calling, the scenarios, everything has been fantastic, right? So you guys check us out, check the base camp out at ElkBros.com. If you like what we're doing, please subscribe, rate, and review us. You got to go to Apple Podcast or iTunes to review us, and you can check out more elk hunting content at ElkBros.com. And just a reminder, if any of our listeners would like their questions answered on our show, just send your questions to info@elkbros.com. That's info@elkbros.com. And like we say down here in the Lone Star State, wives, kiss your husbands, husband, kiss your wives, hug your babies, keep your broadhead sharp and your powder dry. And we'll see you next week right here on Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Hey, guys. And like we always end every show, here's the music from our brother, Tony Wintrip. Peace, peace.
Peace. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the way to close out a show.
What you smoking, boy? It don't smell like the stuff my grandpa used to do. When he carved them wooden ducks, he gently took a puff. A little bit of cherry was drifting in the wind. I can tell that he wasn't all there. He didn't have much. He just stared up into the sky and lit another match. And he said, I'm just trying to ease the pain. I ain't trying to rest no cane. Let me be free every night. I don't want to cuss or fight. I don't ever see the light. At the end of this tunnel is where I need to stay. While I'm trying to ease the pain. He said, you got a minute, man? I said, yes, sir. Go ahead with what's on your mind. He said, I got a busted back and scars I got on both these legs from cutting timber way up on a mountainside. That old chainsaw was slipping right through the back cut. Before I knew it, I was upside down and on my butt. Now I'm just trying to ease the pain. I ain't trying to raise no cane. Just let me be free every night. I don't want to cuss or fight, and I don't ever see the light. At the end of this tunnel is where I need to stay. Well, I'm trying to ease the pain. In a sleeping bag zip tied, I wonder deep inside what your story is. And no one knows but you. Would you open up if we had a few? Lord knows the cardboard sign don't say it all. He said I'd give it all again if I could do it over. And this old bottle of Jack won't get me sober. 'Cause I'm just trying to ease the pain. I ain't trying to rest no cane. Let me be free every night. I don't want to cuss or fight. I lost my kids and my wife. At the end of this tunnel is where I need to stay. While I'm trying to ease the pain. While I'm trying to ease the pain. While I'm trying to ease the pain. I just want to ease the pain.